Bum Podcast
Bum Podcast
between you and me.
between you and me.
All right, so welcome to another edition.
Yes, sir.
And today we're going to dive into something. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it, but that's the norm. But it's going to be about communication.
Right.
And you know, random stuff comes to me from time to time. A lot of times I want to attack issues that we that I encounter during the week.
Right.
And the latter part of this week was kind of rough for me. And it dealt with communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always big on this communication thing, and I'm realizing that the way as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with somebody last week, I believe it was as well, about communication. And they just outright told me, it's like, well, we just don't communicate the same. I was like, well, that's cool. You got to communicate that way. I need to communicate now, though. But it was somebody that was, I don't know, 19, 20, 21 years old. And I mean,
In that age range.
yeah, that age range. And their take on it was that, I mean, we just got to realize that we communicate differently.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, that may be a true assertion, except for the fact that
The communication still has to happen.
communication still has to happen. It still has to happen. And when I'm talking to people, I'm typically trying to coach them up on how to communicate professionally, how to communicate even personally, professionally.
Right.
And so just want to, just kind of dig into that and try to look at it from my perspective and try to look at it from maybe your perspective or how you may think you and your friends communicate and think about communication, and just kind of try to come to some kind of, some kind of middle ground, some understanding, help me to understand better, help, or the listeners to understand from both our perspectives so that somehow we can figure this thing out. Because I always say, the funny thing about communication is not always, I mean, it's never one way. It's got to be communication is the sender and the receiver. And so if the receiver doesn't receive, then
Right.
is it really communication?
I feel like communication styles, there's communication styles from a person to person basis, but I also feel like there's been almost more of a generalized communication, or a shift to communication styles based on a generational standpoint. I feel like just based on the way that, like, say, my generation has come up and the type of things and the technologies that we've had versus the way it was with y'all coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's always conversations about the fact that we don't have conversations.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, y'all don't.
Like, we've even talked about in the past how I'll say I talked to somebody. You ask me if I talk to somebody, I'd be like, yeah, I talked to him. And you'd be like, did you call them or did you text them?
Yeah, did you call them?
And to me, texting is I talk to you.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
it's not the same.
No, it's
for
not.
you.
I text somebody. I didn't talk to them.
So
Yeah.
this is the interesting difference. I think that happens in different ways because things are so instant, which is weird because you would think that face-to-face conversation is the most instant.
Right.
But it's almost like the fact that something or like a conversation could be had or certain things can happen instantly, no matter whether you're with people or not with people. It detracts from being with people and getting used to having organic conversation when in the presence with somebody
Yeah.
or while in the presence with someone. And so I just think that's an interesting dynamic that is happening. And I'm not sure how to. Well, I mean, I guess that's what this is all about. How do we bridge that gap
Yeah,
between the
how
two
bridge the gap.
generations?
How
basically?
bridge the gap. Right.
And the other thing is, especially with like we've had COVID going on and quarantine and all these things going on, and this is obviously something that would cause for things to trend in a negative aspect and the trend to be worse.
Why?
Well, I'm saying especially like the next generation, and I saw something. Well, it was on Twitter. We were just having a conversation about think about like your 2 to 4 or 5-year-olds right now.
Mhm.
They're in the house, and this is the time where you really develop social skills and you develop that functioning part of your brain based on communication. Like there's a science behind socializing children,
Right.
and you have it's lacking right now because there's so much isolation, school online, all these types of things. So because of that lack of personal touch, personal conversation, in-person activity, I could see that
Well,
like a few years down the line, that could cause a problem.
and I can get that. I mean, when you're talking about kids who have not gone through the process of being socialized yet,
Right.
right? But like,
For
go ahead.
well, okay, I was gonna say for us, it might be better because of that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because I noticed you talk on the phone more now than you have in the past. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And not that you talk on the phone a lot, but like again, the conversation used to always be, did you talk to such and such? You like, yeah, I talked to him. Say, oh, wait a minute, did you talk or
Mhm.
did you text? And 9 times out of 10, or 9.5
It was
times
just
out of
text.
10, it was a text. But now, I mean, more, I'm hearing you talking more. Like you're talking on your phone more. You talk over, I guess, the video game more. Like
Mhm.
that whole audible talking
Right.
thing is
Communication is really starting to become more valued for my
right.
generation.
It's becoming more valued. It's because even though y'all text a lot, y'all used to be face to face as well. And even if
Right.
you
It
didn't value being face to face,
There was some kind of balance to it,
right?
so it wasn't one thing all the time.
But
And no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but now that it's gone, now that you don't
Right.
have that option anymore,
After a few months of just the only thing you can do is text, the only thing you can do. So that real, like you see more calling, and when we get closer back to regular, um, you'll probably see a lot more in face, like, oh, let's do this,
right?
let's go
Yeah,
somewhere,
yep,
stuff
yep,
like that
yep.
happening.
So in that regard, I guess it's a really really good thing that's coming out.
We'll see. It's definitely which I know I've had conversations with my friends, just and just a whole bunch of people my age. It's really people see almost like you don't know what you had till it's gone.
Uh huh.
Like really valuing the social side of the college experience. Like wow, all of these things that we took for granted, what I would give to be able to do that now and that type of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy time.
So I'm gonna throw something out
All right.
about communication. Because right now, I mean, we've been talking about personal communication, and I mean, personal communication is, I guess it was sort of a couple things that I got hit with.
Mhm.
Um,
A lot of it was just
a lot of
communication in
it was
general.
communication in general. It was communication in general, and I know I tell you, if somebody texts you
Mhm.
or if somebody calls you and leaves you a message, or somebody email you, you need to respond in kind, right? And even if like you don't have an answer now, respond and let them know that that you heard it. And I got this quote that I'm gonna read you, and I want you to tell me what you think about it. It says, "A little communication goes such a long way. If you're busy, say it. If you're upset, express it. If you're running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. If you're unsure, ask. It's so simple, but so important."
You just want to think about that?
Yeah, what you think about that?
Mm. I didn't hear anything to disagree with.
And but that's the thing that most people have a problem with. Cause like, if I just dissect this, right? It says, if you're busy, say it.
Mhm.
And instead of saying we're busy, we just ignore the communication.
I'll say that's also a huge thing that's talked about amongst our generation when it comes to relationship wise,
Uh-huh.
as in like partner relationship.
Uh-huh.
Just people talking about if you're busy, say something. If you're not going to be able to talk today, say something. That type of thing. So I hear that conversation a lot. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know where some of these problems stem from. I feel like maybe before it was certain types of social skills were developed more organically,
Mm-hmm.
and because of certain technologies and certain situations now or that my generation came up through, there was less of an opportunity for that organic growth to happen, and then there's no mitigation of that.
I don't know what all that meant.
Well, just devices keep people
Okay.
separate,
Okay.
isolated,
Mm-hmm.
whereas like a huge thing that I can even talk about from personal experience is back in high school, like I leave my phone home one day and just the drive and wanting to speak to people raises so much. Because usually when you be in class and nothing's going on, you just sitting on your phone, or like you had lunch just sitting on your phone, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have it, it's like, let me go talk to somebody or something like that. But I feel like different things like that cause us to it's not necessarily certain things that are developed. One thought that I was having was, like, say with email,
Mm-hmm.
there's which I don't know how that was for y'all. That was probably something y'all adapted to.
Yeah, because we didn't have emails now, so you put your age.
Oh yeah, so that was but even still, that was like a technology that came with you. Whereas we're good with texting.
But
It might have been different.
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say the thing about emails is like there's nothing that teaches you how to email or how to talk to people. Like that's not readily given to just any person my age. Like I learned that from doing business. Whereas there's nothing. You disagree?
I do. I do because I think that's just a bailout. I think that's a bailout because I'm pretty sure outside of business, parents tell their kids, "If I text you, text me back." But all parents have an issue with their kids texting them back, right? And it's like even if you just look at the format in which I text you, you can use that same format to text me back.
Because y'all text different.
But all I'm saying is though, but there's not an excuse to say
that's what I'm saying. The format.
Yeah. I mean, it's like okay, but you're saying that. What you're saying is that y'all don't have a pattern. Nobody taught y'all how to do it. And so what I'm saying is if you just reciprocate the same way it's been sent to you, even if you're uncomfortable with it, it's a pattern.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern. Because what you're saying is nobody taught y'all how to use like email. And I'm saying if somebody emails you, if you read the way they email you, you can return the email the same way.
I would say even in the way that, like from my personal experience with email, I know email through one contact. Well, less so now. But back then, like I knew email based on a business context. And so when you said something like just reply and say I'm thinking about it or something like that, that blew my mind.
Okay.
Because to me, it's like you text somebody and say something like that. With email, it's like, oh, you only send official, finalized messages over email.
No. It's the same. It's just another mode of communication.
Which that's why I was saying stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Like,
Okay, now
that didn't click for me.
Okay, I understand
like,
it now.
Sending emails almost like faxing a letter or something like that.
Okay,
it was an official stamped business, something like that. You don't just say like the way, because I know sometimes I like type an email out.
Yes, I don't
like if you get an email in the road.
Yeah, like I want to type and drive. Yeah.
You tell me to say to like type. All right, got it, thanks, or something like that. And so even just that, I'm like, oh, people just email like that?
Hey.
Like that's a text message, got it, thanks. And that was something that I learned through seeing you do it.
Okay.
But it didn't connect like that because of the way that, the context in which I understood email.
How about that? Yeah.
That's what I meant by that.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll give you that one. You got 1 point for that. But I just, it's just like, going back to what it say, if you're busy, say it, right? I remember, and this is something I learned from business, right? It was like when you talk to somebody, like don't go to somebody and say you got a minute, right? Because you never take a minute,
right?
And so I make a habit of saying you got 5 minutes, because this is what I was taught. Like you got 5 minutes, you got 3 minutes, you got 7 minutes, you got 10 minutes, and then hold yourself accountable.
Have a general idea of what you're talking about,
right? So you have
a minute could be like a minute, or it could be 30 minutes. You
right?
don't know.
Right. And so if I come to you and I say, hey, you got 5 minutes? If you don't have 5 minutes, say, no, I don't have 5 minutes right now. But if you come back at the end of the day, then you can. Like earlier today, I asked you. We had something we were supposed to be doing, right? And so I was like, hey, do you want to do it now? And he was like, nah, let's do it later on today. Right? Now, you didn't define what later on today was, but at least you were able to say, no, I don't have time to do it right now, but let's do it later on today. And that's the mentality. That's communication. And so that's one of the things that I want to be a takeaway. It's like, if somebody comes to you and they ask you something, even if you don't have the answer to it, or if you don't have the time to do it, communicate that you don't have the time to do it. Or like if somebody say, you got a minute, right? Somebody comes in and say, you got a minute? Say, no, I don't have 8 minutes, but I got 3 if that's all you're going to take. And feel free to say that kind of stuff, because these say, okay, and in the 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes, be like, all right, I had 3 minutes, but my 3 minutes gone. I need to move on to the next thing. And I think you can say that respectfully, right? Because
I agree with that.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of thing that I guess when it comes to communication, because again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everybody is getting what they need out of any kind of relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, business relationship, romantic relationship, or whatever.
Mhm.
And the best way to do that is through communication. And so the last thing you want people to
I
do is to wonder or guess where you are. Go ahead. What you gonna say?
I was gonna say just like because it's funny because I'm already forgetting kind of what you just said. Oh, okay. Now, okay. I had to think about it. So, that type of thing, I feel like is learned through comfort of conversation.
You're right. Or repetition of conversation.
Well, yes, that, but I'm saying once you have a certain amount of conversation, so many times you begin to understand the ropes of what you can say within that type of conversation.
Mhm.
Um, which I'm not trying to make excuses or anything. I'm
It
trying to point out different things, like different areas of which this could
uh-huh.
be something happening. I feel like we're not necessarily taught about certain type of situation.
I believe that. I can buy
Um,
that.
just like that's a huge thing they talk about education in school and things like that. They teach you like how to do certain math, but don't teach you how to file taxes or
Mhm.
different things like that.
Context. They don't give you the context for the content they're giving you.
Right.
I got it.
And then when you go in to get a job, they ask you for context when you didn't get any.
But see, here's the problem with that. I mean, well, I can't say the problem with that. I agree with what you're saying. So there's no disagreement with what you're saying. But when you get it, you have to accept the source in which you get it from, right? And so, like, if I'm telling you, me as your father are telling you, hey, this is the way you need to communicate. If you don't have a better way of doing it or don't have a way of establishing doing it at all, try what is being given to you to try.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But
So,
then I would also pose to you that like you deal with youth and young adults, like people around
mhm,
like 18 to 20, whatever.
mhm.
And so a lot of people at that point, that it's going to be a reform thing
You're right. You're right.
instead of a forming
You're
thing.
right, but you're right. You're right. That's all I can say. You're right. Because when I learned what I just told you about, I mean, I was in corporate America when I learned that. I don't have 1 minute, but I can give you three. I was in corporate America when I learned that. But for me, my gift to the world is because I learned it in corporate America
To give it back.
to give it back at a younger age.
And now you need people that are willing to accept
You,
that
you got to have
information.
people that's willing to accept it, and that's where I'm running into my problem at is, and a part of what my frustration was this past week is because it's like I'm telling people this, and when I'm telling them this, they're looking at me like, well, I'm sorry, that's just the way you communicate. I don't have to communicate that way, and I'm like, look, all I'm trying to do is help you out,
No.
and you have to be
Communication has to happen.
right. Communication has to happen, and so allow me to help you without you getting turned up because like shit, you can fail at this game if you want to. It's gonna cost you. It's not gonna cost me because I know how to communicate.
Right.
So, um, so yeah, that's the thing. So the next one says, if you're upset, express it. Now I know you're big on this one right here.
I am.
If you're upset, express it.
I got in a which it's funny. I had a conversation with some more friends and we were talking about I can't even remember what we were talking about. But it was something that's what we were talking. We were talking about basically like Zoom study sessions or work sessions, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about that because that idea had been posed like a minute ago, which I'm about to just spill all the beans. I'm gonna tell the whole situation. But so one of my friends posed that, and like I agreed, we all agreed, we're like, yeah, let's do that, and we did it once, and it was like me. It was five of us that talked about it, 5 or 6 of us, and me and him showed up, and then one other person like came in, was out, back in type thing, and then after that, it never happened again. And so I brought it back up like a week or 2 ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we should do this. And then he came and he said, yeah, I was trying to get people to do it. I said, I was for it the whole time. It's just we stopped doing it. His thing was, well, I shouldn't have to be the person to bring it up every time, which you may agree with that. My thing was, I mean, it was your idea that you brought up. So if you're like, all right, let's do this again, I would expect that to come from you. This wasn't what the problem was.
Mm-hmm.
The problem came in when he was but he almost like blamed me. He's like, well, people weren't. That's the problem. He was like, people. Well, people weren't this and people weren't that. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Who was
Don't
people?
say people because
Who-
you know
who
you're
was
not
people?
talking to me.
Yeah, who was people?
Who are you talking to? That's what my thing was. And then he was like, oh, yeah, it's not that deep, you know. That happened before. I was like, nah, I don't do faux peace. Like, if we going to talk about it, let's
Right.
address it.
Right.
Address the people you talking about. And then they start jumping in, oh, it's not even that deep. It's not about y'all. Like, let's just plan the next one. So now I'm upset at this point. 'Cause I'm like, we ain't about to brush over it. If it needs to be addressed, let's address it. Because if you don't address it, it'll be a problem in the future.
Right. If it don't address
Which,
it,
guess
it'll fester.
what? We haven't done it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's when you said that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, I know.
like,
I know.
address
that's a big
it.
thing. Address it. Address it. And
If
it's,
it's like, it doesn't have to be, because it started off, it wasn't that serious. I wasn't upset. He wasn't upset. It was just a conversation being had. But you can address what this is even something I've had to learn. You can address how you really feel, your displeasure with something, your disagreements with something, things like that. Which is funny how I learned it. I'll get into that. But you can do something like that, and it doesn't mess up a relationship.
It doesn't mess up a relationship, right?
Which not to talk too long, but I'll go into where
No, go
I
ahead.
learned this. I actually learned this from CentriKid,
Okay.
which I was a camp counselor for those that don't know. Basically, and I was teaching like 2nd and 3rd grade. I ended up with the youngest group, but basically I'd be in charge of like anywhere from 30 to 50 2nd and 3rd graders every week for like it was like 3 months that I was doing this. And I learned, which is funny, because a lot of the other counselors, they were scared to like address certain things with their kids, or like they were scared to be like, no, don't do that, things like that, which I learned really quick. Like, well, for me, one, y'all ain't about to be acting no type of way. Y'all ain't gonna be running around crazy. Got me feeling bad. And like, I'm out of control. Like, no, I'm gonna control the situation. But you can chastise a child quick, easy, just say something to them and they'll stop. And you might feel like, oh, I don't want to have a harsh tone with them, things like that. But really, they respect
Right.
that.
Right.
And so where you would think that you tell a kid no, and they don't, like, oh, they ain't gonna like me for the rest of the week, or that, like, that is the kids that you tell no that end up liking you the most.
Yeah.
And so that taught me a lot about relationship. You can really voice how you feel, and even if like you may feel like you're doing too much, but you're not doing too much. You're voicing how you feel. If somebody doesn't deal with how you feel or what you have to say about something, then that's something that relationship doesn't need to go further anyway.
Right. And,
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, I agree with you 100%. And what I was going to say was, but the thing is it's because you address the action.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not. I'm not beating down the person. I'm
Right,
saying
that's a
the
part of
action that the
Things
person,
are laid out unattached.
right. That lay it out. There it is. Lay it. I see. You learned that one, huh?
Right.
Lay it out there unattached. You just put it out there unattached. And that's the one thing I guess I could say about you and my relationship, because I've never skirted around correcting you,
No.
or I've never skirted around calling you to the carpet on stuff,
Or just talking trash.
or just talking trash. But it hasn't. I don't think it has affected our relationship.
No. It just makes it more open and honest.
It makes you more open and honest, because if you do something, I'm gonna call you to the carpet on what you did. Doesn't mean that I feel any worse about you or any better about you. It means that you did an action that if it goes unchecked, it's gonna fester and it's gonna make the word
That's
still
exactly what I'm
worse.
saying. Even if it's something's like, all right, I saw this. This is something I don't like. This type of stuff I don't usually deal with. So I'm just letting you know. I'm dealing with you again because of our relationship.
There you go.
We don't keep doing this because it will get me to this place.
There you go.
That's open, honest communication that can be had.
Not
So-
passive aggressive. Just let's address it. Let's put it on the table and address it and go.
I was even talking to another friend about this a few days ago about setting boundaries in just like any type of relationship. Like if you don't like something, say it. People may act like you're acting crazy at the time, but really when the conversation ends, they'll have more respect for you
There
and
you
not
go.
less.
There you go.
Like-
There you go. Because they don't have to wonder where you're coming from.
Right. People like to know when you're on it.
That's bad.
They know what they're dealing with.
I hate that. The thing that I dislike the most is because people are not accustomed to straight shooters.
Right.
They're accustomed to people manipulating and not really saying what they mean. And I like to say what I mean.
Right.
And people, you know, looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, nah, that ain't really what that. No, that ain't real. That ain't real. No. That's really how I feel.
Right. And that's the same thing with me because I'm the type of person like I'll say I like to either say exactly what I think or not say anything at all.
Right.
So if I feel like I'm in a situation where, oh, I'm gonna have to make my answers sound a certain type of way, things like that, I'd rather just not speak.
Yeah. Real talk. Real talk. All right. So it says, this ought to be an easy one. If you're running late, let people know.
Yeah, that's big.
Mm-hmm. You gonna start doing that?
When do I be late?
What?
I
Oh
don't
my
recall
God.
anything
Like,
that.
I'm gonna tell you the worst thing in the world is when people learn you so much that they have to tell you that the time to leave is 15 minutes before the real time to leave is.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so if you running late or you know somebody's sitting around waiting on you, like don't just let them sit around and wait on you. Call them and say, you know
Say
what?
something.
I'm gonna be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes late. And you know what? I always say under promise and over deliver. So
Right.
if you're gonna be 5 minutes late, tell them you're gonna be 10 minutes late, and then
Mhm.
show up in 5. Right? That'll make them feel better, but at least communicate with people instead of having people sit up and waiting on you. And
Right.
that's for anybody that's listening.
Agreed.
All right. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward.
Don't do it.
But don't say you don't want to do it. Don't do it. Communicate that you don't want to do it.
Mhm.
Like that's an easy one. It's like, you know, and I can understand. Okay, so let me put it like this. You lose more respect by
Indeed.
not saying it and not doing it
Mhm.
than you will by saying you don't want to do it.
I
Right?
feel that.
Yeah. Because most people, like, I ain't gonna say most people, a lot of people will be like I'll tell you because I know this person's not gonna listen to my podcast. Like I asked somebody for something like 36 hours ago, and I'm still waiting on it.
Mhm.
Right? And the thing is, I don't have to have it because it was for their benefit. But the thing is like if they hadn't planned on delivering, they could have just said, well, you know what, I'm not gonna get that to you. As opposed to having me sitting back waiting on it. Because the longer I wait on it, the worse my feeling is about my
Mhm.
interactions with this person.
Right.
And so just you know, just to put out there, like if you don't want to do something, you fare a whole lot better by saying you don't want to do it. Like even if it's your parent, you know, like you know what, I really don't want to do this. Now I know you're gonna make me do it, so I'm gonna do it. But if I'm doing it with an attitude, realize I'm doing it with an attitude because I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
And I can remember, like I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling him, you know, he was talking about his son and how he wanted his son to do something, and they had gone somewhere, and his son got an attitude, and you know, he was like, well, he told his son, you ain't got to have no attitude with me. If you don't want to do it, you ain't got to do it. I'm like, nah, you did the wrong thing.
No,
Because his
yeah.
son ain't do it. His son left,
You're gonna
right?
do it whether you have attitude
Nah,
or
bro,
not.
you're going to do it whether you got an attitude or not.
You have a right to have an attitude.
You got a right to have an attitude. I can't
But you
take
don't
your
have
attitude.
a right to not do what I told
There
you.
you go. You don't have a right to not do. And so his son would have come out far better because it just ballooned out of proportion. His son would have come out far better saying, you know, I really just don't want to do this.
Mhm.
Now I'm gonna do it for you because I respect you, but I really don't want to do it. And then at that point, you give your father, or in this case, anybody, you give them the option of saying, you know what? Well, if that's the way you feel about it, then don't worry about it. I'll get somebody else to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Which I could be honest, this is something that I'm still working on myself with because like for me a big thing for me right now is working still on the which it's funny because in certain situations I'm good at it, in certain I'm not as good at it. But the not doing thing,
mm-hmm.
because I'm typically the person that I won't want to do it, but I'll do it. I mean, you know what? Why not? I'll do it. Because I'm such a is the word laissez-faire? I don't know if
Yeah, laissez-faire be good.
I don't like. I'm so
Comme comme ça.
lukewarm.
Lukewarm.
I won't feel like even if I don't want to do something, I won't have such a negative feeling about it.
Right.
Like if I don't want to do something and I end up doing it, I'm not gonna be like hurting. I'll be
Attitudiness or
right. Like I just did something I didn't really want to do it, and so like afterwards, it was like it was cool. Like it didn't hurt to do it. It's something I would say. It didn't hurt, which I'm getting better at. If I don't want to do it, like then you don't have to do it.
right.
And so now it's getting past. All right, you've gotten this now. All right, so let's say like just put that out there. I'm not too comfortable with doing that.
Right. Like washing dishes. Like
Mhm.
you just don't do it.
Yeah, I do it sometimes.
Mm. All right. Let's see. It says if you're unsure, ask.
That's probably a good one. I'm not really big on. I don't really ask a lot of questions. Me personally. Um, which is a combination of so many things. But I'm not. I'm a listener, which is funny, but I don't really ask a lot of questions either. Um, which of course is situational anyway,
Mm-hmm.
of course. But I'm the type of person where, like, if I'm in an interview or something like that, I don't naturally have questions to ask. I just know that I'm supposed to ask questions, so I develop questions to ask. But I'm not naturally just ask questions. I'm usually, if I think of something, I'll ask you. And then it's that in combination with I be trying to do stuff myself
Well,
and
yeah.
figure stuff out myself,
Okay.
which is probably a pride thing.
It is. It's a whole lot pride thing, but that's okay. Ego thing. Yes, it is.
More pride than ego.
But I can understand if you're unsure about something and you're able to research it.
Right.
I think a lot of times people are unsure about stuff and they just fumble their way through it, or they just don't do it because they're paralyzed.
Right.
You know. And my thing is ask. I'm big on asking. I'm big on asking clarifying questions.
Right.
Matter of fact, I try to get people to oversimplify stuff for me because I want to make sure what I deliver is exactly what you're asking for.
Which I'm getting better at that.
Yeah, because I talked to you about that too. Because I mean, especially with business, it's like
Right.
you know.
Oh yeah, a whole bunch of situations like that.
You got something to say?
I was just gonna say, what was it? Oh, because this is something I just recently dealt with too. I was doing something, and you kind of came to me and like, all right, so has happened. Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I went into it. I was doing it, and I didn't necessarily know what they were having me doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had an idea of what they talked about, and a few different ideas were talked about. But it's like, all right, are we doing this or doing that or doing that? I just kind of signed on to help them, but not knowing exactly what I was doing. And so your thing was just ask for the scope.
Right.
Let me know. Send me an email. Put in writing for me exactly
what you
want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now I got the guideline. I know exactly what I got to do. If you want to address that, then let's go back to this plan that you set out and let's talk about it.
There you go.
But there's a document. There's something to look at, something physical, so you know it's there. And so that type of clarity is a great thing.
Yeah, because if not, I mean, you sign on to do something, and we're talking about communication now. You sign on to do something, even just if you sign on verbally to do something, and you're not 100% sure what somebody wants you to do,
right?
And you don't get clarification from it, and then you go off and do something,
and then it's on you if you do it wrong.
And it's on you if you do it wrong, or if you ain't do the right thing, and you still got to expend more energy to do something else because no, just if you're unsure, ask because I mean because like you said, it's ego. Ego says that I got it all together. That's what ego says. Ego says I have it all together.
I'll figure it out.
And the problem is if you're right, it's good. But if you're wrong,
it's not. And it's better to ask clarifying questions because, I mean, the majority of the time that won't hurt.
Right.
If anything, they'll respect more.
This
person cares to get it right.
They want to make sure they get it right.
Which something else to go along with that even is speaking up on what you're doing. Like if you have an idea about it or a certain disagreement about it, or maybe we could try it this way, you should voice that.
Right.
Which is something that I'm working on as well. I really got to work on. It's funny. I'm working on my communication, sir.
Oh man, that is great.
Yeah,
I appreciate you working on your communication. Go ahead.
Because like I learned this a lot with like committees I have for school and stuff like that. Because they'll be asking me to do something, and it's like that don't make no sense to me. I don't understand why that don't make no sense. And so I had to get myself to the point where I was comfortable being like, let's try it this way. Let's try to attack it with from this perspective, things like that. And you'll find that you become more of a valued ad because of it. When you're not just a worker and you're not just sent out to fulfill something, you're actually adding and contributing. And I think that benefits all around, at least to voice it.
I got 3 things to say about that.
All right.
Well, actually, it's 2 things, but one of them is going to be broken out into 2 things. You've heard it 100 times, but the one thing I will say is, and we alluded to it earlier, and I want to thoroughly explain it.
All right.
Putting something on the table unattacked.
Oh, yeah.
Right? it's like if you offer an opinion, realize that is your opinion,
Mhm.
right? And people do not have to adopt your opinion. And if they do not adopt your opinion, it is no slight on you.
Right.
And so what it means by offering it unattached is if you have an idea, put it out in the middle of the table, and this is visually. Put it out in the middle of the table and step back from it. And if it gets chopped up, if it gets chopped up, if it gets adopted, it gets adopted. That's the way you deal with it. And so because a lot of times we don't voice our opinion and we don't offer our suggestions because we're afraid that they're gonna reject our what we say. And if they reject what we say, they we get the feeling that they're rejecting us. No, they're not rejecting you, they're simply rejecting your idea. They may come back around to your idea sometimes later. Right now they're rejecting your idea. Don't feel bad about it because your
Right.
idea is just put on the table unattached. That's the first thing I want to say.
I have something to say about that.
Go ahead.
If you'll remember your thing.
No, I got it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. So that's something that me and my good friend, we talk about that, and he even says that often. He said, "In life, I've learned not to personalize things
Mm-hmm.
because 90% of the time, it's not about you.
Right, right.
People like they said that or they did that because of something going on with them,
Mm-hmm.
and it had nothing to do. They might not have even really seen you there. You were there, but it just came. They were expressing themselves. They didn't need it. It wasn't about you.
Right.
No, you were just the person in front of them, type of thing. So learn not to personalize everything. Especially if someone disagrees with an idea that you put out, because like you said, they disagree with the idea.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, oh, I hate that person. They gave an idea that I didn't like, so now I don't like them.
And it don't even mean it's a bad idea. It
Right.
may just mean they don't want to use your idea. They just don't want to use your idea now. They just don't understand your idea.
Right.
But give them that right. And, that's one thing I'm big about. And I mean that may be a whole different podcast. But stop trying to take away people's rights because we try to take away people's rights all the time. I mean you got a right to give your opinion, but they got a right to
Disagree.
with your opinion. And so don't take that right away from them. The other thing that I was going to say, and this comes from when you said the worker ant, the worker ant mentality is make people money and save people money.
Oh, yeah.
I say that all the time. It's like there are three type of people in this world. You got the worker ant people that just do what other people tell them to do, but they're not really the value add to the organization. Now they're necessary in the organization, right? Because you need people to implement your ideas. But the value-added people in the organization, or the main value-added people in the organization, are those people who can save a company money or make a company money. And the only way you can do that is by offering your individual expertise to add to what's already on the table. So
Right.
that's the other piece that I was going to add to what you're saying. You're absolutely right. When you got clarity on what's going on, ask more clarifying questions. If it's something that you don't agree with, you don't like, you think need to be changed, then you offer your opinion. Offer your opinion unattached. But be in the position to actually add value, to make money or save money in whatever that endeavor is.
Right.
All right, and the last thing it says here is, it's so simple but so important. And so it says a little communication goes such a long way. If you're busy, say it. If you're upset, express it. If you're running late, let people know. If you don't want to do something, be straightforward. If you're unsure, ask. It's so simple, but so important. And I want to talk about this whole communication thing because again, I just got hit this week with a couple, maybe more than a couple, but it was just and it was this whole lack of communication thing. And one of the people that I was talking with, there's a huge age gap between us, and they just wanted to make me feel like, we just different. And we just see the world differently, and that's why we do it. I mean, in all honesty, like, there are probably a whole lot of times why I hate communicating as well. A whole lot of times why I just want to ignore people or not communicate or not commit or, you know what I'm saying, or be grown. And but the space that we're in necessitates that we communicate. It necessitates that there's a sender and a receiver. And that's not even talking about mode, method, all that kind of stuff. But it necessitates being a sender and receiver. And so if somebody sends you something, the only way communication takes place is if you receive it. The only way they know communication takes place is if you reciprocate or if you return that message to at least let them know, hey, I got your question or I got your answer. I mean, I got whatever it was. I'm working on it. Give me some time, but I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at the very least. And I mean, one of the biggest things for me is when I'm working, I go around, I talk to students, and I'll ask them like, how many unopened emails do you have? And the number that the unopened emails that people have on their phone is just astronomical. The number of unanswered text messages is just astronomical. Like I just asked you a few minutes ago, I was like, have you talked to your friend? And you was like, man, he texted me the other day and I forgot to text him back.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like just work on that as a communication piece. Like when you get something, immediately, if not, I won't say immediately, but in short order, at least respond and let people know. I mean, I guess one of the biggest things now they got read receipt, but read receipt shouldn't replace you responding to somebody.
I had a thought, I guess, when it came to kind of talking about that business side and value add when it comes to conversation, communication. And I was thinking, which there are probably more, but I was thinking of two places problems like that could stem from. It's me. Which they could stem from either, well, I won't even talk about it in problem form. I'll talk about it in solution form.
Okay.
Be comfortable within yourself and understanding that you have a lifetime of experience that could be a value add to other people. That was the first thing. The second thing is that value add portion. Be understanding that we're here to be a part of community. And so you adding your value add is what builds community.
It builds community. You're right.
Community is people giving their value add, using their experience. And so when we're talking about having a good communication, first be comfortable with yourself. You can have a seat at the table, basically.
Right.
You can have a seat at the table if you're sharing your experience, if you're sharing your value add, if you're doing it for the right reasons. And so you can have a seat at the table, and the purpose of it is for you to contribute.
Yep.
So
and
you might not have the one problem, you might have the other, but it might be one of those problems.
And feel comfortable contributing. Feel comfortable contributing. Yes.
Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, I mean, I just want to encourage communication. Send a receiver. Always respond when somebody sends you something, even if your response is, I got your message, but I don't have an answer right now. And let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. So, all right. Bum Podcast.
Bum Podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me. Holla.